Watch how Rupert Lowe delivers a stunning takedown of civil servants, exposing what he calls a dangerous misuse of public funds inside Parliament itself. What begins as a technical discussion quickly turns explosive as Lowe reveals shocking figures. Millions spent on projects like gates and refurbishment, while key decisions appear unclear and poorly managed. With his own construction experience, he warns of a looming disaster driven by bureaucracy, lack of expertise, and ever-changing plans. Is this necessary investment or a massive waste of taxpayer money? Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Let's watch this explosive clip.
Well, Chairman, I have to confess I'm quite bemused about the whole thing, and I just want to ask a few questions. I know ostensibly I'm asking about cost, but I think cost is pretty irrelevant at this stage. What I'd like to understand is the objective of this exercise, is it to basically do necessary repairs to the UNESCO heritage building, or is it actually to provide better accommodation and offices for the Lords and the Commons? What is the actual objective of this operation?
So under the 2019 Act, there are areas to which the programme has to have regard to. So that includes visitor services, education services, security, and a host of others. What the Act didn't do was establish the priority areas of work. And when we had the reset in 2022, we made sure the commissions at that time, then the client board, confirmed what those priority areas were, and that was taken through the Houses in 2022, and it was agreed to be fire safety, mechanical and electrical services, asbestos and building fabric. They are the core areas of work to which this programme has been designed around. But as I say, there are a number of areas to which we have to have regard to, and the outcome level does take regard to. So it is there to deliver the overarching requirement under the Act is to restore the palace as a whole.
So I listen in horror, and I built the stadium at Southampton. It's not as big a project as this, but we built it on budget and on time. And the only way we did that was we identified what the design was, what we wanted, and what it was going to cost. And the other thing we did was, which you've got to do in this situation, is you've got to bolt down your downstream risk from variations and changing your mind on the existing plan. So what you need to start with is you need to start, in my opinion, with what do you want to achieve? And then you should be able to relatively straightforwardly cost it. And I listen in horror, you talk about there's boards everywhere. That's a disaster. That means people change their minds. It means you've got to consult. It means you've got to discuss things with people. So I'm confused. I actually think there's a huge danger here that if we don't get a small, lightweight team of people with construction experience, I mean, I don't see many people, and again, I wanted to understand, I'm one of the new MPs, and this other than being on this committee, I wouldn't have much.
I think we will come on to.
But Geoffrey, I just want to understand this. So the IAAP, are they made up of people with construction experience? Because there doesn't seem to be much construction experience on the two guiding boards.
So the Independent Advice and Assurance Panel was made up of people with construction experience. Yes, absolutely. And there are external members of the programme board who were specifically chosen for their major programme experience too.
So, and how much are you factoring in AI, which is in all likelihood going to reduce the number of staff that MPs need, not increase them? So there's likely to be less demand for offices, less demand on accommodation, more opportunity to use technology. So is that being factored into the equation?
It is factored into the opportunities work that Russ's team will start to pursue. I would just add that under the Act we have a statutory duty to consult members, and under the Act all members of both houses have to decide on this programme. They have to decide on the cost of proposals.
But I'm down on this. We need to know what we're deciding on, and I don't think anybody's quite clear on that. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done before this can really be effectively sold to both the MPs and members of the House of Lords, which assume they've got to agree as well. But I mean, in terms of us understanding, I'm a new boy. I was elected in 24. I haven't been on the tour. I'm not sure the tour's been particularly well publicised as far as I'm concerned. That may be my deficiency rather than your deficiency. But I do think, but what are you going to do with the tour? Tell people what you might do rather than what you are going to do? That's a question. And I know we're under time pressure. Don't forget, there's no point, Russ, in costing stuff now. We've just seen oil prices doubling. We've seen construction costs going through the roof over the last 5 to 10 years. There's little point in trying to cost something now that you're not rebuilding until 2032. What you need to do is work out what you're going to do, what you want, and then when you're going to build it, cost it, and then lock down all the variables that are going to cost you a lot more and waste taxpayers' money.
If I could just respond on the process points. The process that you've outlined of being very clear on the requirements and then developing a solution against it, in our view, that is what happened in 2022, 2023. We've been given a very clear set of requirements. We've then worked to develop a scheme against a very clear set of requirements, and effectively we're proposing cost and schedule envelopes on that basis. Clearly, the big outstanding decision is which variant of decant Parliament wants to choose, and that is the big unresolved issue that we need to sort of firmly lock down the programme. On your kind of point about costs and risks looking a long time into the future, that is exactly why we've got very wide ranges of cost and why we've got very significant elements of contingency in the numbers. So full decant at the bottom end of the range, 30% contingency, top end of the range, 80% contingency. On EMI Plus, that rises to 130% contingency at the top end of the range. So that would absolutely reflect the sorts of uncertainties that you've just outlined.
Well, anyway, I'm not going to go on, but the only other question I had was, in terms of RAC and asbestosis, how much? I mean, that's obviously, if it needs to be dealt with, that has to be dealt with, particularly RAC. So how much is that likely to cost us? I mean, that I see as a necessity purchase rather than as a sort of an arbitrary purchase.
So there are, RAC is not particularly extensive in the Palace. It tends to be in the sort of more 1970s editions. It's something that we feel we've got a good handle on through the survey work, and it's absolutely something that we are planning to address. Similarly, asbestos, we've done some sampling surveys to try and get a handle on how much asbestos exists. Again, as Charlotte mentioned, one of the big priority areas for the programme is dealing with asbestos in the Palace, and that's absolutely built into the programme.
Can I just lastly, Chairman, understand, on your £1.5 million a week that you're spending on, I think you called it repair and maintain. Yeah. Does that include these wretched gates and everything else that have gone in? Is that all included, or is that on top?
It includes the works to the Palace itself. Yes. So
the gates you put on the outside too. I mean, who signed all that off?
So the accountable officers in the houses are the Clerk of the House and the Clerk of the Parliament. They are the accountable officers and the corporate officers.
That must have cost lots of tens of millions to do all these wretched gates that hold me up coming out of Parliament now. I mean, who actually signed off on that?
4 million to be precise.
Sorry?
64 million.
I know, Jeffrey, but if you take 1.5 million a week, by the sort of crude maths that I employ, that's £75 million. What did it cost, Jeffrey? 46 million. So there's a large slug. That's included.
The figure 1.5 million is a live figure and changes depending on the portfolio of works undertaken by the Parliamentary estate. It includes the wretched gates to keep the public out. As far as I understand, it includes all works of the Palace, which we would include.
All of that, I'm afraid, is arbitrary spend. It's not necessary, is it?
Those particular works came under the security programme that was designed to make sure that members of both houses can continue to be safe and secure operating on this site.
When I talk to both members of both houses, they tell me nobody was consulted about it. So this committee made the decision to do it. But I mean, most MPs had no idea, and most of the Lords had no idea what was happening.
So business cases are obviously, Treasury compliant business cases are produced for all parliamentary programmes and would include this one, Restoration Renewal. The one you're talking about is the security programme. That went through the normal business case process. It was approved by the accounting officers and corporate officers, so the two clerks, depending in which part of the building it was on. And as part of that, those projects have engagement with the domestic committee, so the administration committee and the finance committee as normal. Restoration Renewal has a separate governance structure, but I think, Chair, you probably want to cover that in
It's in that
questions.
1.5 million a week, you're saying?
As far as I understand it, those costs are included in those £1.5 million a week.
What you've just witnessed is a rare moment where frustration cuts through the usual formalities of parliamentary committees. Rupert Lowe didn't just question the numbers, he challenged the entire structure behind how decisions are being made. And that's what made this exchange so powerful. From the very beginning, Lowe made it clear he wasn't convinced. Not by the process, not by the explanations, and certainly not by the scale of spending. When he said he was listening in horror, it wasn't just a dramatic phrase. It reflected a deeper concern about how large public projects can spiral out of control when there's no clear vision, no defined objective, and too many decision-makers involved. One of the most striking points he raised was simple but critical. What exactly is the goal? Is this about essential repairs to a historic building, or is it about creating new facilities and offices? Because without a clear objective, costs become unpredictable, timelines stretch endlessly, and accountability begins to fade. Lowe's background in construction gave his arguments extra weight. He spoke from experience, highlighting how successful projects depend on clarity, discipline, and control. Define what you want, lock down the risks, stick to the plan. But what he saw here was the opposite: multiple boards, layers of bureaucracy, and constant consultation, all of which can lead to delays, confusion, and rising costs. So now we turn to you. Do you think this level of spending is justified for maintaining Parliament, or does it point to deeper problems in how public funds are managed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. And if you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Finally, make sure you subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free, and it helps us continue bringing you the most important, unfiltered moments from UK politics. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next one.